Her husband left her for her younger sister. A year after the devastating discovery, they announced an engagement party. When her mother said she'd be attending, Lauren felt the ground vanish beneath her, but her mother calmed her with a chilling promise. "I haven't forgiven what they did to you. I'm going to do something they'll never forget. Just wait and see." Fate, with its cruel irony, weaves the threads of life in ways that reason refuses to grasp. For Lauren, the golden thread of her happiness began to take shape in the unlikely setting of a tech office in Seattle. A respected manager with a confident stride and decisive judgment, she saw in Daniel, the new hire, not just professional potential, but a spark that mirrored her own. He was a blank canvas, intelligent, quick to learn, yet raw, needing the skilled hand of a mentor to bring out his true colors. Lauren, with the patience and dedication of a natural guide, became that artist. Day after day, amid spreadsheets, projects, and the constant hum of servers, a bond grew. Conversations that started with deadlines and goals spilled into coffee breaks, then dinners, and soon deepened into dreams, fears, and whispered confidences in the stillness of the night. Professional admiration gave way to genuine affection, which swiftly blossomed into an all-consuming love. Daniel seemed to be the missing piece in her life's puzzle, the perfect counterpoint to her strength, with a gentle demeanor and an ambition she had helped ignite. Their romance was a natural progression, a celebration of the harmony they'd found. In no time, a marriage proposal sealed their shared future. Lauren was radiant. She felt immense pride, not only for finding love, but for shaping the man Daniel had become. He was climbing the ranks at the company, earning recognition, and each of his victories was hers too. Lauren's family welcomed Daniel like a son. Her parents adored him, and even Jessica, her younger sister, seemed charmed by her brother-in-law, always present at Sunday barbecues with a knowing smile and words of support. Their wedding was the crowning moment of a modern fairy tale, proof that love and career could indeed walk hand in hand toward a bright future. Standing at the altar, Lauren felt like the luckiest woman alive, certain that their love, forged in mutual admiration, was unbreakable. Little did she know that the foundations of her castle were already being undermined, quietly, by the person she trusted most. The first year of marriage was a blur of joy and routine. Their life together clicked like two gears in perfect sync. Lauren cherished the small rituals, rushed weekday breakfasts, quiet dinners where they shared the day's challenges, lazy weekends. She watched Daniel thrive, taking on more responsibilities, and her heart swelled with pride. But over time, a discordant note crept into their perfect symphony. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible, it grew into a nagging disturbance. Daniel started coming home later. His excuses were always plausible, wrapped in the corporate jargon she knew so well. Last-minute meeting, urgent project, tight deadline. At first, Lauren understood. The ambition she'd nurtured came at a cost. She'd cook dinner and wait, often eating alone, the food cold on her plate. But the late nights became more frequent, and with them, a chilly distance settled between them. Conversations grew shorter, touches rarer. The spark in his eyes, once reserved for her, now seemed fixed on some distant concern he no longer shared. Lauren felt a warning bell ring in her soul. This wasn't just exhaustion, it was detachment. Determined to reclaim the connection slipping through her fingers, she planned a surprise. A romantic weekend at a charming bed and breakfast in the Cascade Mountains, a place to reconnect far from the pressures of work and the city. Heart full of hope, she pitched the idea to Daniel on a Thursday night. His response was a cold splash of reality. "Oh, babe, that's too bad," he said, avoiding her gaze, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as a prelude to excuses. "This weekend, of all times, I got called for an off-site gig. Quick job but good money, couldn't say no." The disappointment hit like a punch to the gut, but Lauren forced a smile, swallowing the bitter sting. "Oh, got it. No worries. Work's work." She clung to the image of the devoted man she loved, convincing herself his absence was a sacrifice for their future. Deflated, she cancelled the reservation. Friday dragged on, heavy and silent. Saturday morning, her phone rang. It was her mother, her voice as vibrant as ever. Lauren vented about the ruined weekend plans. Her mother's response was immediate and full of energy. "A bed and breakfast? And you're just gonna cancel? No way. We're going. Just you and me. I could use some rest and a good laugh. Pack a bag, I'll pick you up in an hour." The idea felt odd at first, but the thought of spending time with her mom, the one person who seemed to notice the shadow in her eyes, was a balm. Maybe this was exactly what she needed. A refuge, a comforting presence. Daniel was working all weekend, and she didn't want to be alone. They arrived at the B&B as the afternoon sun gilded the landscape. The air was crisp, the setting serene. For a few hours, Lauren relaxed, her mother's laughter infectious, briefly easing the emptiness she felt. They decided to head to the inn's pool area to enjoy the rest of the day. Strolling casually, chatting about nothing in particular, her mother suddenly froze, her body rigid, her gaze locked ahead. Lauren followed her line of sight and the world seemed to stop. Her breath caught in her chest. There by the pool, hand in hand and sharing kisses that left no room for doubt, were Daniel and Jessica. Daniel, her husband, who was supposed to be on a work trip, and Jessica, her sister, her confidant, her maid of honor. The scene was so surreal, so grotesque, that for a moment Lauren thought she was hallucinating. But it was no illusion. It was betrayal in its rawest, most blatant form. Shock gave way to a wave of nausea and fury. Her mother, recovering first, was already moving, her face contorted with rage, ready to storm toward them. But Lauren's hand stopped her, firm and steady. A cold, analytical calm, the same she used to navigate workplace crises, took over. "Not now," she said, her voice low but laced with icy resolve. "Not here." With trembling but precise hands, she pulled out her phone and hid behind a nearby hedge, snapping photos. Each click pierced her heart, but they were also ammunition for the war that had just begun. The images were crystal clear. Their smiles, their kisses, their shameless intimacy. Her mother watched, sensing the shift in her daughter. The pain was still there, devastating, but beneath it a new strength was rising, a strength that sought not immediate chaos, but calculated justice. "We'll do this my way," Lauren said, pocketing her phone. In that moment, the woman who believed in fairy tales died, and in her place rose the architect of a vengeance as meticulous and relentless as the pain consuming her. The drive back to Seattle was a haze of silence and suppressed pain. Each mile on the highway was a step away from the naive woman she'd been, and a plunge into an unfamiliar, shadowy part of herself. Her mother drove, casting worried glances, but respecting the cocoon of silence Lauren had woven. There was nothing to say. The poolside images seared into her mind and saved on her phone spoke volumes. The pain was a living thing in her chest, tearing her apart, but over it a layer of ice formed, a cold, terrifying clarity. The project manager, the strategist, the crisis solver was taking charge. Her broken heart would have to wait. Now was the time to act. Back in the city, Lauren didn't enter her apartment. She stopped at the door she once called home and felt a chill. It was no longer hers, a crime scene the stage of an elaborate lie. With her mother's help, she headed to a 24-hour hardware store. She called a locksmith, and changing the locks was the first tangible act of her new reality. The drill's whine, tearing through the door, was the soundtrack of her severance. Each tightened screw was a nail in the coffin of her marriage. The next step was methodical, almost surgical. Inside the apartment, the air felt heavy, tainted by his presence. His cologne lingered in the hallway, his clothes strewn over a chair, an affront. With emotionless efficiency, she began untangling their lives. She opened their shared closet and, piece by piece, removed everything that was Daniel's. Shirts, jeans, shoes, all folded and packed into suitcases and cardboard boxes. She didn't cry. Her tears were frozen deep inside, and she had no intention of releasing them. Each item she touched was a memory, a small betrayal. The tie she gave him for his birthday, the shirt he wore on their first date, the watch they bought together on a trip. Relics of a life revealed as a sham. Her mother helped in silence, a pillar of quiet support as Lauren made the most critical call. She dialed a longtime friend, one of Seattle's top family law attorneys. The conversation was brief and direct. "I need to start divorce proceedings, fast and quiet. It's contentious." "He cheated with my sister." A gasp of shock came from the other end, followed by a promise of immediate action. The wheels of justice were set in motion. By Sunday night, the plan reached its final stage. Daniel's belongings were stacked in the apartment building's hallway, next to the elevator. Lauren was at her mother's place miles away when her phone buzzed. It was him. A confused text. "Babe, I can't get in. The key's not working." Her heart lurched, a mix of panic and power. She took a deep breath, her cold fingers typing the lie that would seal the end. "Had to give up the apartment. Owner's selling. It happened fast. Go to your parents, okay? We'll talk later." It was a flimsy excuse, but in the whirlwind of his own deceit, he might buy it. And if he didn't, it didn't matter. The door was locked, literally and figuratively. Another text from him. "What do you mean? Where are you?" She read it and didn't reply. Silence would be her sharpest weapon. On Monday, Lauren didn't go to the office. She dressed with the care of someone heading into battle, but her destination was different. She went straight to a psychiatrist recommended by her lawyer. The session was brutal. For the first time, she voiced everything, and the floodgates broke. Tears came, convulsive and bitter, a torrent of pain, humiliation, and rage. She left with a medical report. Acute emotional exhaustion, burnout. It was the truth. She was drained from being deceived. With the report, she visited HR. Her stellar reputation preceded her. She explained her situation calmly, citing serious personal issues and a need for medical leave. She presented the report and requested a switch to remote work, indefinitely. The request was approved without question. Work, once the stage of her love and her greatest betrayal, became her fortress, her shield. Before shutting off her work phone, she sent one last message to Daniel. "No preamble, no accusations, just the final blow. No need to pretend anymore, I know everything. I saw you two at the B&B, my lawyer will be in touch. It's over." Then she blocked his number, blocked Jessica's, blocked aunts, uncles, cousins, and mutual friends who might serve as bridges. She deactivated her social media. She changed her phone number and moved to a new address, building a fortress of inaccessibility. Only her mother held the key to this new world, a quiet visitor bearing groceries, hugs, and the wisdom of someone who knows some wounds only time can heal. Their talks were brief, focused on the present. The past was a minefield they both avoided. Lauren didn't ask about Jessica or Daniel. She didn't want to know. Their names were shards of glass in her throat. The year that followed was a long, monotonous note of silence. To the outside world, Lauren became a ghost. To herself, she was a hermit in a digital cave, a self-imposed sanctuary shielding her from pain and prying eyes. Her new apartment, small and impersonal, rented in a Seattle suburb where she knew no one, became her universe. The white walls witnessed her Spartan routine. Wake up, boot the laptop, dive into spreadsheets and reports, shut down at day's end. Work, once the scene of her love and her deepest wound, became her only anchor, a refuge of logic and goals amid her emotional chaos. Her social life was the first casualty. Invitations to birthdays, weddings, and family gatherings were politely declined by her mother, her exile's gatekeeper. Lauren's not feeling well. Lauren needs time. Lauren's away for work. The excuses varied, but the message was clear. She was unavailable. The pain at first was a physical weight, a tightness in her chest that made breathing hard. Some nights, her pillow was soaked with silent tears, mourning a stolen life. She wept for the betrayal, but also for the loss of her sister, her shattered innocence, and the confident, dreamy woman she'd once been. While Lauren rebuilt herself in the shadows, Daniel faced the harsh light of exposure. Her final message hit him like a lightning bolt. Shock turned to panic, then defensive anger. He tried calling, texting, but met only the digital void of a blocked number. At the company, Lauren's physical absence was the first crack in his facade. The official story was her burnout leave, and at first people seemed to accept it. But her absence was a vacuum he couldn't fill. He and Jessica tried, clumsily, to step out as a couple. Since Lauren knew and they believed they truly loved each other, they started appearing together publicly, tentatively at first, then with growing boldness. Daniel introduced her only as Jessica, omitting the critical detail tying her to his vanished wife. But the tech world is a small, watchful village. Colleagues noticed his odd behavior, his poorly concealed anxiety, his furtive glances at his phone. They noticed how he dodged any mention of Lauren. Rumors began to simmer, like water on a low boil. Did he cheat on Lauren, and that's why she's working from home? He's already with someone else? Guys like him are no good. No one knew the full truth, but the scattered pieces formed a picture of infidelity. Daniel's image as a rising star and devoted husband began to erode. He felt the stares, the whispers that stopped when he approached. The admiration he once basked in was replaced by veiled suspicion. He, who had been lifted to success by Lauren's hand, now stumbled in her shadow. Jessica, meanwhile, lived in a mix of euphoria and denial. She thought she'd won. She had the man she wanted, but the victory tasted bitter. Their relationship, born in secrecy, didn't fare well in the open. Without the thrill of the forbidden, cracks appeared. Daniel's guilt, societal pressure, and above all, Lauren's ghost haunting their silences. One day, nearly a year into her exile, Lauren's apartment buzzer rang. It was her mother, but this time she carried more than groceries. In her hands was a pearl-colored envelope. Lauren's heart froze. She recognized her sister's handwriting. "What's this?" Her voice came out weaker than intended. "It's an invitation," her mother said, her tone neutral but her eyes glinting with an emotion Lauren couldn't read. "Jessica's throwing an engagement party. She's finally revealing her mystery fiancé to the family and friends." Lauren's blood surged, her face flushing with heat and fury. The audacity, the cruelty, a party to celebrate the destruction of her life. She crushed the imaginary invitation in her mind, wanting to scream, to break something. "You don't expect me to go, do you? You can't be asking me that." Her mother placed a hand on hers, firm and reassuring. Her gaze was intense, a silent vow. "Trust me," she said, her voice low and heavy with meaning. "This isn't about forgiveness. It's about justice. I know you've shut out the world and I respect your pain, but I'm your mother. You think I've been idle this whole time? You think I've forgiven them? In my family, betrayal doesn't take root." Lauren stared, confusion battling rage. What did she mean? "I'm going to that party and I'm going to make them pay for you," her mother continued, a lioness defending her cub. "You don't need to be there, but I want you to watch. Watch and enjoy. I promise you won't regret it." A sick curiosity, laced with deep distrust, stirred in Lauren's heart. Revenge. Her mother, the woman with an easy laugh and a generous heart, talking about revenge? The idea was as absurd as it was intriguing. What could she do? An embarrassing speech? A public scene? It seemed too small for the scale of the betrayal. "How?" Lauren whispered. "Just watch," her mother repeated, a cryptic smile on her lips. "I'll be on a video call with you the whole time. Think of it as your private box seat for their final act." Lauren hesitated. Part of her wanted to refuse, to stay in her safe cave, far from anything that could reopen her wounds. But another part, one she thought was dead, felt a spark of interest. Her mother's promise was potent, a reckoning she hadn't dared imagine in her isolation. With a slow, almost imperceptible nod, she agreed. She would watch. For the first time in a year, she felt something beyond pain and apathy, a twinge of terrible anticipation. The night of the engagement party arrived with a tension that seemed to cut through the fiber-optic cables into Lauren's small apartment. Sitting on her couch, laptop open on the coffee table, she felt like a spectator at a theater of the absurd. The screen showed the elegantly decorated banquet hall, a staged scene of fake happiness. Her mother, impeccably dressed, had discreetly positioned her phone on a table, giving Lauren a prime view of the event. Each face that passed the camera was a stab to her chest. Aunts, uncles, childhood friends, all smiling, oblivious to the web of lies surrounding them. Lauren's heart pounded, a mix of anxiety and lingering fear of further hurt. She saw Jessica, radiant in a white dress, gliding through the hall with a rehearsed smile. Beside her, Daniel, in a sharp suit, his stiff shoulders betraying his unease. They were the center of attention, the happy couple whose mysterious love was finally unveiled. The irony was so thick she could taste it, bitter as bile. Some guests noticed Daniel was her sister's ex-husband, but asked no questions, unaware of the truth. Some even wondered if he was a twin. The party followed its predictable script: soft music, lively chatter, clinking champagne glasses. Anticipation grew. Everyone wanted to know who had won the heart of the family's youngest daughter, so similar to her missing sister's husband. Finally, the MC announced the speeches. Lauren and Jessica's father, a man of few words but unshakable integrity, spoke briefly, wishing his daughter happiness, unaware of the full story. He'd questioned his wife, but she promised to explain later. His voice cracked with genuine emotion, though rooted in half-truths. He didn't know everything, not yet. Then came the moment her mother had hinted at. Jessica, voice trembling with excitement, took the microphone. "Many of you are curious," she began, laughing. "And I'm thrilled to finally share the man of my life, our story and how we found each other. But first, my mum prepared a special tribute for me." "Mom?" Lauren's heart stopped. This was it. Her mother rose, walked to the stage with unnerving calm, and took the microphone, a screen lowered behind her. "Good evening, everyone," she said, her voice steady and clear, echoing through the hall. "Tonight is a celebration. And on nights like this, we love to reflect on where we came from, to honor our roots and our stories." The hall fell silent. Jessica looked at her mother, tears of anticipation in her eyes. Daniel smiled, seeming to relax for the first time that night. The first image on the screen showed two little girls, hand in hand on a beach, Lauren and Jessica. The next showed them as teens, hugging, sharing a secret. Lauren's throat tightened. Her mother was crafting a narrative, the story of two sisters. The video continued, showcasing Jessica's childhood and youth, but always with Lauren by her side, the protective older sister. Then the narrative shifted. Images of Lauren as an adult, successful and happy. Then Daniel appeared. Photos of their early dating days, their engagement, their wedding. The hall, expecting a tribute to Jessica, now watched, confused, a homage to Lauren's marriage. Murmurs spread. Jessica stared at her mother, her smile frozen, confusion turning to panic. Daniel paled. Then came the final blow. The last images flashed on the screen, stark and undeniable. The photos Lauren took at the B&B. Daniel and Jessica by the pool, hand in hand, kissing. A collective gasp swept the hall. The silence that followed was heavy, as if the air had been sucked out. Jessica, her face twisted in horror, screamed, "Stop it! Turn it off! Mom, what are you doing?" But her mother didn't falter. Microphone in hand, her eyes sweeping the stunned crowd, she spoke with no anger, only deep sadness and unyielding moral authority. "I cannot," she said, "support a relationship that began by destroying my other daughter's life. The man you see beside Jessica is Daniel, and until a year ago Daniel was married to Lauren." She paused, letting the truth sink in. Shock on the guests' faces turned to outrage. Disdainful glares fixed on the couple. "And Jessica," she continued, her voice breaking for the first time, "was her sister, her maid of honor, the person she trusted most in the world." The hall erupted in scandalized whispers. The engagement party became a public tribunal. Jessica sobbed hysterically, tugging at Daniel's arm as he stood frozen, his face a mask of humiliation. Lauren's mother concluded, her words ringing like a verdict. "What you see isn't love. It's betrayal in its vilest form. In my house, my family, the truth always comes out, no matter how painful. I couldn't share in this happiness while my other daughter suffered because of their betrayal." She set down the microphone, turned to her husband, who looked at her with a mix of shock and understanding, and took his hand. Together, without looking back, they walked off the stage and out of the hall, leaving devastation in their wake. The engagement wasn't just over. It was obliterated, transformed into a tale of shame that would be retold for years. In her apartment, Lauren watched, tears streaming freely down her face. But they weren't tears of pain. They were catharsis, tears of a justice she never thought she'd have. For the first time in ages, she didn't feel like a victim. She felt avenged. The days after the engagement party were like the eerie calm following a hurricane. The scandal spread like wildfire, first among the family and friends present, then rippling through texts and whispers to wider circles. The story was so sordid, so cinematic, it became the talk of dinner parties and coffee runs. The video, though not shared publicly, lived in the minds of every guest, undeniable proof of betrayal. For Lauren, the catharsis of that night gave way to a new, unexpected feeling: power. The shield of invisibility she'd built over the year wasn't just for protection anymore. It was for sharpening her blade for the final strike. Her mother's revenge was the heavy artillery demolishing the enemy's walls. Now, it was her turn, the general, to march over the rubble for the final battle, the professional reckoning. She spent days planning her return. Scouring the company's event calendar, she found the perfect opportunity: a quarterly internal conference where project managers presented results. The keynote speaker, the event's star, would be Daniel, speaking on overcoming and thriving in times of crisis. An irony so rich Lauren almost smirked. It was the perfect stage. He'd be at the peak of his arrogance, projecting success and resilience to the C-suite. It would be his last performance. On the day of the conference, Lauren dressed like a warrior. She chose a tailored blazer in deep navy, exuding authority. Her hair was pulled into a sleek bun, her makeup subtle but sharp. She wasn't the fragile woman who'd hidden for a year. She was the senior manager, the respected professional everyone knew, reclaiming her territory. She arrived at the company's downtown Seattle office unannounced. She strode through the corridors that once felt like a second home, head high, ignoring the stunned stares and dropped jaws of colleagues who saw her as a ghost. She didn't stop to chat. She had one goal. The conference room was packed, the C-suite in the front row. On stage, under the spotlights, was Daniel. He was mid-speech, gesturing with a voice full of manufactured confidence, talking about how his team overcame challenges with innovative solutions. He was the picture of corporate success. Lauren slipped in through the back door, standing against the wall, invisible to him but noticeable to much of the audience, who now split their attention between the speaker and her, wide-eyed. She waited for the climax, the moment he puffed out his chest for his triumphant closing. "And that's why," he said, his voice booming through the speakers, "integrity, trust, and transparency are what sustain us." That's when Lauren acted. She pulled out her phone, connected it to a small portable speaker she'd brought, and pressed play. The audio, recorded by her mother at the engagement party, blared, sharp and brutal. First, her mother's voice: "I cannot support a relationship that began by destroying my other daughter's life." Then Jessica's desperate cry: "Stop it, turn it off." And finally, the damning verdict: "This isn't love, this is betrayal." Daniel froze on stage, the color drained from his face. He scanned the crowd, searching for the sound's source, and his eyes locked on hers. The shock on his face was Lauren's reward. The room fell into a dense silence, broken only by the audio exposing the raw truth. When it ended, Lauren turned off the speaker and stepped forward, her voice calm but cutting, filling the void. "I apologize for bringing a personal matter to this forum," she said, addressing not Daniel, but the C-suite. "But this talk was about integrity and trust. And I felt it was time to stop protecting the reputation of someone who destroyed mine, personally and professionally, with lies." No one moved. No one breathed. The executives shifted their gaze from Daniel, paralyzed on stage, to Lauren, standing tall, in command. His mask had shattered publicly. He wasn't an exemplary leader. He was a liar, an adulterer whose personal ethics now cast doubt on his professional conduct. He tried to stammer something, but no words came. Without another word, Lauren turned and left the room with the same calm she'd entered. The executive meeting that followed was immediate and behind closed doors. The scandal was too big to ignore. Daniel wasn't fired. That could spark a messy lawsuit. Instead, the solution was subtler, and for him, crueler. He was transferred to a small branch in rural Idaho, a dead-end office with no prospects, a corporate exile. It was the end of his promising career. Lauren, meanwhile, received an email from the CEO requesting a meeting. She was met with respect, and her request to continue remote work was upheld, not as a sign of weakness, but as proof of her professionalism and resilience. She had won. The dust of Lauren's war settled slowly, revealing the ravaged landscape left behind. For Daniel, the corporate exile was just the start of his freefall. The transfer to the remote branch wasn't just a change of address, but a demotion in status, a daily humiliation. The man who once led strategic meetings and earned applause at conferences now managed a demoralized team in a forgotten office. The prestige he craved evaporated. His name, once synonymous with success, became a cautionary tale of arrogance and betrayal. Opportunities dried up, and the contacts who once flattered him stopped returning his calls. He was tainted. Jessica, who tied her fate to his, soon realized she'd boarded a sinking ship. The life of luxury and admiration Daniel promised was a mirage. What remained was a bitter man whose ruined reputation made his financial future shaky. Her dependence on him, once a safe harbor, became an anchor dragging her down. When whispers reached her that the transfer was a prelude to an inevitable firing, the spell broke. The love, or what she thought was love, couldn't withstand the prospect of mediocrity. With the same haste she'd fallen into his arms, she left him. Alone and with shame as her only companion, Jessica sought refuge in the one place she knew, her parents' home in Bellevue. She knocked on the door she once called home, hoping for comfort, maybe a scolding, but ultimately forgiveness. She found her mother the architect of her public humiliation. The reception wasn't what she expected. There were no shouts, no accusations, just something worse: calm, resolute disappointment. "You can't stay here now, Jessica," her mother said, her voice flat but her eyes heavy with deep pain. "This house is built on trust and respect, and you broke both. Your mistake wasn't just falling for the wrong person. It was destroying your sister in the process." Through sobs, Jessica tried to explain. She showed old texts, proof of her own naivety. She recounted how Daniel seduced her with a toxic narrative, claiming his marriage to Lauren was a sham, a social arrangement, that he was trapped and unhappy. She was his savior, the only one who understood him. And she, young and dazzled by an older, successful man's attention, believed him. Her regret was raw, shame burning her face. Her mother listened silently. "I believe you're sorry," she said at last, "but sorry doesn't erase what you did. Your sister's trust, our trust, isn't won back with tears but with actions. You need to rebuild yourself alone. You need to feel the weight of your choices. One day, maybe, when time has done its work and you've proven you've changed, you can ask Lauren for forgiveness. Until then, the door to her heart, and to living in this house, stays closed." The words were a verdict. Jessica was utterly alone. With money from her father, she rented a tiny studio in a working-class part of Tacoma. For the first time, she faced the harsh reality of supporting herself. She took 2 jobs, a barista at a coffee shop by day, a bartender at night. The long hours, the bone-deep exhaustion, the lonely nights in her cramped apartment became her penance. The girl who dreamed of glamour now counted tips to cover rent. In every weary moment, her sister's face and the weight of her actions haunted her. Meanwhile, Lauren's life began to regain color. The victory, though bitter, brought closure. The burden she'd carried for so long started to lift, replaced by a lightness she hadn't felt in years. Looking in the mirror, she saw not a victim, but a survivor, a woman who'd been to hell and back, stronger and wiser. The sting of betrayal lingered, a faint scar on her soul, but it was no longer an open wound. There was room for a new beginning. One day she smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. It happened in a mundane moment, sipping coffee on her apartment's balcony, watching the sunrise over Puget Sound. In that instant, a clear truth filled her. She hadn't lost anything of value. They had integrity, family, respect. She, in contrast, had reclaimed herself. With this newfound freedom coursing through her, Lauren made a decision. She took her savings and bought a ticket to Europe. No itinerary, no companions, no expectations. It was a journey for herself, a pilgrimage to find her own joy. For weeks she wandered cobblestone streets in London, marveled at art in Paris, sat in Viennese cafes watching the world go by. She learned that solitude wasn't loneliness. In her own company she felt whole, complete. She rediscovered self-love, the music of her own thoughts, the joy in small things. On the flight home, renewed and at peace, fate, once so cruel, offered a gentle nod. A man sat beside her, and after a moment recognition sparked in his eyes. "Lauren, it's me, Ryan." The name pulled her back to adolescence. Ryan, her childhood neighbor, her first shy boyfriend. The boy she'd swapped notes with at school and shared an awkward first kiss behind the bleachers. He was different now, a grown man with faint lines around his eyes, but with the same warm smile she remembered. Their conversation flowed easily, as if no time had passed. They laughed over old memories, shared the paths life had taken them. He told her he'd become an architect, lived abroad for a while, but returned to be near family. Then, with disarming sincerity, he confessed something that surprised her. "You know, I was totally in love with you back then," he said, smiling, "but you were so driven, always studying, ready to take on the world. I knew I couldn't keep up with your dreams." Lauren laughed, a light, genuine sound. "I was a bit intense, huh?" "You were determined," he corrected, "and I always admired that about you." They talked through the entire flight, an old connection sparking anew, mature and grounded. When the plane landed, he asked for her number, not with the haste of a charmer but the calm of someone rediscovering something precious. Lauren gave it without hesitation. She didn't know what the future held. She wasn't searching for new love or someone to complete her. She was already whole. But as she walked through SeaTac terminal, she felt a spark of possibility, a hint that life, with all its twists, still held beautiful chapters to be written. And she was, at last, ready to read them. What did you think of this story? It was inspired by a true story. It's hard to believe one sister could do this to another, but life sometimes throws these curveballs. I hope they found peace. Now share your thoughts in the comments with a rating from 0 to 10. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to stay updated on all our stories. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video. Hello, beautiful soul. If you are hearing these words, it means you have journeyed with us to the end of a story, and perhaps in the twists and turns of someone else's life, you have felt the echo of your own. Perhaps you have felt the sting of betrayal, the chill of loneliness, or the heavy weight of a heart that has been broken. Life, in its immense and often unpredictable wisdom, presents us with moments that test the very core of our being, moments that leave us standing in the rubble of what we thought was our reality, wondering how we will ever find the strength to take another step. I am here to speak directly to that part of you, the part that might be hurting, the part that might feel lost, or the part that is simply searching for a glimmer of light in the darkness. I want you to close your eyes for just a moment if you feel comfortable and take a deep breath. Inhale slowly, and as you do, imagine you are breathing in pure golden light. Hold it for a second, and as you exhale, imagine you are releasing all the pain, all the doubt, and all the weariness that has settled upon your shoulders. Do this once more. Breathe in hope. Breathe out sorrow. There is a profound and unshakable truth that I want to share with you today. You are not defined by what has happened to you. You are not the sum of your scars. You are not the reflection of the people who failed to see your worth. Those experiences, as painful as they may be, are not your identity. They are simply chapters in a much larger, more magnificent book, the book of your life. And you, my friend, are the author. You hold the pen. At any moment, you have the power to turn the page and start a new chapter. It is in our moments of greatest darkness that we discover the true brightness of our inner light. When all external sources of validation and love seem to disappear, we are forced to turn inward. We are forced to find the love within ourselves. And what a discovery that is, to realize that you are and have always been whole. You are not a half waiting for someone else to complete you. You are a complete universe, a masterpiece of creation, worthy of love, respect, and happiness. simply because you exist. This journey of self-love is the most important one you will ever take. It is the journey of coming home to yourself. It means learning to speak to yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. It means forgiving yourself for the times you did not know better. It means celebrating your victories, no matter how small, and treating your setbacks not as failures but as lessons. It means wrapping yourself in a blanket of compassion and whispering, "It's okay, we will get through this. I am here for you." When you become your own best friend, your own staunchest ally, you become an unstoppable force of nature. I know that sometimes faith can feel like a distant concept, especially when you are in pain. But faith is not about the absence of doubt. It is about taking a step even when you cannot see the whole staircase. It is the quiet trust that the sun will rise again, even after the longest, darkest night. It is the belief that there is a purpose to your journey, a divine intelligence weaving the threads of your life into a beautiful tapestry, even if you can only see the tangled knots on the back right now. So, as we part ways today, I want to leave you with this final thought. Look at your hands. These are the hands that have held you together. These are the hands that have wiped away your tears. These are the hands that will build your new life. They are strong, they are capable, and they are ready. Believe in the magic of new beginnings. Believe in the strength that resides within you. And above all, believe in hope. For hope is the anchor of the soul, the whisper of the dawn, and the unwavering promise that no matter what, the best is yet to come. You are loved. You are worthy. You are enough. If you have listened this far, and if this message has touched your heart, let us know you are here with us. Affirm your hope and your strength by writing in the comments below, "I believe." By doing so, you not only empower yourself, but also inspire everyone else who reads it. Amen.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.